the UWS ninth annual Native American and Multicultural Read-In. Um, I'd like to give you a little bit of a history on this. So back in 2011, the Maine State, or not Maine, where am I? Wisconsin. The Wisconsin State Reading Association sponsored a read-in, and they focused the read-in on Native American authors, especially Wisconsin Native American authors. And at that time, I was part of the I was also part of the Maine State Reading Association. That's why I keep saying that. But Wisconsin State Reading Association. And I thought, well, that would be fun to join in, because I felt that we really needed to highlight multicultural literature, and especially Native American literature in our area. And the reason why this was in the teacher education program, we wanted our students to be using excellent multicultural literature in their classrooms as K-12 teachers someday. And so we got involved in this, and we had such a great response. The first year, we brought in all the books we could find from the library and from our own collection that we'd been developing. And we put out milk and cookies for everybody, and the crowds came, and we were so thrilled that we had people from not just the Department of Education, but from all over campus came and had milk and cookies and sat and read. And our students were exposed to, and the whole campus exposed to, some really excellent literature, and especially focused on Native American authors and illustrators. And so that was really exciting for us. And so we kept doing that for the next couple of years. And then the Wisconsin State Reading Association decided not to pursue this anymore. But we had such a thing going that we continued this for, well, till today. We had 1 year we didn't do it. But other than that, each year it's gotten bigger and bigger. And then COVID, and what are we going to do? Well, typically we do this in the fall, but we had Caitlin Bauman, who was urging us on and said, we can do this, we can do this. And joining forces with First Nations and Cassie Brown and Chantal Norgard in the First Nations and Indigenous Studies program. And with help from the Superior Public Library, the Jim Danhill Library, we got this going. And so we're so pleased to have everybody here for our kickoff event, our featured authors this evening. And so I want to tell you a couple things before I introduce them. First of all, we have some prizes we're going to give out at the end of the week. So you're already entered because you're here. And so every event you come to, you will get another entry, and we have lots of books. We have books from our featured authors tonight, and we'll be choosing these randomly from the people that are entered. And so the more events you attend, the more chances you have to win great books. So don't forget to join in every night for our events. Also, don't forget to pledge to read. So you can follow a link to a sign up and pledge to read this week, and you'll also be entered into our drawing for great books. So don't forget that. And I do want to let you know that we are recording this event tonight, so that lots of people can access it throughout the week. So understand that. And then other events that I'm telling you to come to. Tomorrow night we have Cassie Brown is going to be talking about dream catchers, and we'll be making them. She's going to demonstrate how to do that. Materials are available at the YU. Wednesday, Mike Ranio is going to focus on Sadako and the 1,000 paper crane stories, and teach you how to make paper cranes with using Japanese origami. And Thursday, Chantal Norgard and her students are going to be focused on children's literature that they've been researching, and we'll have an evening of children's lit. So, and then the library site, we have links to all sorts of great books for you. Superior Library has a collection of books you can check out at the Superior Public Library. The Jim Danhill Library, you can check out books if you have a card there. And you also, with a card, have access to the electronic versions. We have lots and lots of books that are available electronically for us this week and, well, throughout. So I encourage you to read, and read. And all of the events are found on our campus calendar, so check those out. And with, let's see, with no further ado, I'm going to introduce our authors. Okay, so we have, and we're so pleased to have two awesome authors with us tonight. And two of my favorite books that are going to be highlighted tonight. You can see I have lots of books here. One of our authors, Thomas Peacock, has many books. A couple that, this is one of my favorite, The Good Path, that has all sorts of activities in it, and explanations that are just really helpful. Teachers, I always ask my students to make sure that they try to find a copy of that. I think 9 years ago, Thomas Peacock donated a book to our read-in when he was a professor at University of Minnesota Duluth, and we cherish that. That's this copy. And tonight he is going to read from his book, The Dancers. And I'm so thrilled because this is such a beautiful story. I can't believe it's like a dream come true, getting him here and having him read that. Then we also have Heather Brink, who's written this delightful story called Rez Dog. And Heather is, I'm not sure where you are right now, Heather.
I was in Arizona. I moved to Wisconsin, so I'm in southern Wisconsin right now.
Southern Wisconsin, thanks. And Thomas Peacock is coming to us from Florida. So so he's probably chuckling that we're sitting here still, in warm clothes and all. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And I'm going to send this over to Heather. And welcome, Heather. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, and so much for having me to this evening and for inviting me. My name is Heather Brink. I'm originally from Superior. My mom still lives there, and she's actually on the event right now. So I wrote Rez Dog mostly because I was frustrated by the lack of Native children, inclusion of Natives in children's books. There's not very many Native children's books. There's not many current Native books, children's books, or books in general, youth books at all. And when you look at the books that are written, they aren't, they can be summed up as like historical Native books, Thanksgiving, Discovery, those sorts of things, or, like certain historical figures, or not written by Native authors as well. And then those books also tend to not be written at a child's reading level. So those two facts were very important to me when I was wanting to write a book. And also, if you don't have books that look like you when you're a child, you get discouraged about reading and consuming media further as you grow up. You also, it enforces the stereotypes you have about Native peoples, either whether you're Native or not Native. It enforces those stereotypes. You can either accept those stereotypes or challenge those stereotypes, but those are the reasons that I wanted to write this book. So this is a book about a scruffy dog who's abandoned, and he joins a family. It's a kind of a story that it doesn't have any stereotypes in it. It just is it's kind of puts a native child is a current story. It can happen anywhere in any reservation or any city in the U.S. And it's familiar. It's modern. It can happen anywhere. And it's the dog is finding a home with the family, and the child and the family are taking care of the dog and naming the dog. I wanted to be able to see myself in a book because I hadn't been able to do that when I was growing up, and be able to see the value in the stories for other people that I know. So the pictures, I wanted the pictures to look like children like me when I was growing up, like children that I was. So, and again, limiting the amount of text per page so that it's readable. So those were my factors when I was writing. And so I had a friend who was reviewing this book, and she saw the pictures and she's like, that picture, that is me and my dog. So it's important for people to be able to see themselves in this book, even if they've already grown up and are continuing to read. It's important for people to see themselves. So, and I can read the book now if you guys would like. If I get some water. So this is Rez Dog. And I'm going to try to show you pictures at the same time. It may not work, but at night, Rez Dog curled up to sleep in the woods near the gas station. He wondered if he would ever find a family. Rez Dog ate scraps of food he dug from the big trash can. You can see his tail down there. Here you go, little Rez Dog, the store manager, Mr. Thompson, said, handing the little scruffy pup a hot dog with lots of pickles. There's that little. Eat this instead. Rez Dog sat in the woods near the gas station, watching the people and cars come and go. There were noisy cars and smelly trucks. There were grumpy people. He saw loud teenagers and big families. He lived with all those types before, not this time. There were also quiet cars with friendly people. One truck already had a puppy riding in the front seat with them. One car had a couple that looked like they were getting ready to go on a trip out of town. He didn't see anyone who seemed just right. Then he saw someone who might be just right. There was a small child peeking out the window of a pickup truck. She had brown hair and big brown eyes. She was with her mom. There. And the girl, Sammy, spotted him. Look, a dog. Can we take him home? You remember what we agreed to about a dog. It is your responsibility to walk, feed, and clean up after, right, kiddo? Said her mom. Let's go ask the store manager, Mr. Thompson, to see if he knows anything about this little Rez Dog. Sammy, that's just a Rez Dog. Nobody owns him. But if you want to take him home, I'll give you some stuff, said Mr. Thompson. And there's the dog peeking up his ears and kind of getting excited about the idea of going home to a family. On the way home, Rez Dog and Sammy were chewing on beef jerky. Sammy and Rez Dog were wearing garbage bags. Rez Dog was pretty dirty. There's the cute little dogs wearing the dog and Sammy wearing the garbage bags. Mom tells Sammy when they get home that Rez Dog is not coming inside without a bath. Don't forget, kiddo, Uncle's coming over. Rez Dog sat outside on the front stairs next to Sammy. He listened and waited with her. Hey there, kiddo, and hey there, little Rez Dog. It was Uncle. Hiya, Uncle. Rez Dog got up to sniff Uncle. I brought dinner and some things for your stinky Rez Dog. Let's hose off that stinky Rez Dog, and then we can give him a bath with that special flea shampoo I brought, said Uncle. Then he carried the dog inside and straight into the bathtub. Rez Dog did not like baths, and he did not like being wet. There's that grumpy dog. Sure, we can relate to that. But now that he was clean, he could explore the house. Again, with the tail wag. That night, Sammy was way too excited. She couldn't sleep. The next day, Sammy called her friend Mike. And again, also on the Zoom call. She showed him the dog, and they talked about names. Snickers, Cheddar, Colby, Pickle, they're debating the names. Later, Sammy, Mom, and Rez Dog go over to Uncle's house. They're driving in the vehicle. Uncle said, "You got a dog, Sammy. Let's see him," said Auntie. "Let's feed this skinny pup and all my grandkids too," says Grandma. Lots of feeding. "So do you have a name for this little Rez Dog?" asked Auntie. They're all eating and deciding on names. So he needs to have a brave warrior name. So some of the name suggestions: Moose, Warrior, Stinky, Dagger, Ace, Elvis, Brute. Pickle. "I see he picked out his own name," says Grandma. "I guess so. And he smells like a pickle too." Pickle was happy. He had a home and a real name and a wonderful new family. That's the end.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
So would you entertain any questions?
Of course.
I guess maybe people can write them in the chat or raise a hand or something. I have several questions. Maybe
Of course.
So did you know the illustrator of the book?
I have only talked to the illustrator over email. So I was introduced to the illustrator through Tom, who is the publisher of the book.
Oh, okay.
And Tom and Betsy.
Okay. And so in your communication with the illustrator, what was that like, trying to get your image of what the book would look like?
Yeah, so my process is, when I write the book, is I'll write the sentence of sentence or sentences of what goes on the page, and then a separate line or two lines of what the text of what the description of the image I want to go with that text. And so, like, if the text is Rez Dog is curled up to sleep in the woods near the gas station, then I'll say, oh, the image is a gas station in the woods, and the dog is sleeping outside the woods. And it's, like, the woods are kind of, Northwoodsy for me, because that's the woods that I am familiar with and we're familiar with up north. If it was in someplace else, I would have a different set of woods in my mind. But, like, so where the Sammy and the dog are wearing garbage bags, it could just be on the seat or on top of them, like they're wearing like a park, like a toga or something. So I kind of would write down what I would like each image to be, as like a line below the text. And then sometimes it would, be a little bit back and forth of, okay, can we change this up a little bit? Or sometimes I kind of had like I want it to look like this, and I would send those notes back. But the illustrator did a good job.
Yeah. Did you ever send actual drawings or,
A few, yeah. But I am not an artist, so.
Stick figures.
Yes, very much stick figures.
And so were some of the images were those of you and your experiences, like the garbage bags? I mean, I don't know. Is that like, because that's something I remember, when it's raining or something, there's the garbage bags, cut out the holes and,
Yeah, that's from something like from different things in my life, but not necessarily from with a dog, but it's definitely from different things in my life of, okay, put a garbage bag on so you either don't get soaking wet or gross. Just like when you put the bread bags in your boots when you're don't want to get soaking wet from snow. It's like you use what you have.
I think so many can connect to that, some of those images. Um, do you have a dog?
Not at the moment. I had a dog growing up, and then my dog that I had as an adult, we had to put her down a few years ago, so we haven't gotten another one since then.
And is this dog in any way representing your own dog?
A little bit, like bits and pieces of different dogs that I've owned are in there, and in different ideas I've had. Yeah. I had one dog that had been abandoned, and she had been found in a grocery store parking lot, wandering around, and then so that kind of was a piece of that. So that's the story that they gave us when I got her at the pound is, oh, she was found abandoned in a grocery store parking lot.
Perfect.
So
I have a question.
Yes.
Heather, do you have any future stories or books that you're working on?
Yes, I actually would like this Rez Dog to be an actual further series. So I have ideas for several more books that I'm working on with these, but that's further down the line. I have more adventures for them to go on in my head.
I also have a question, and I'm sorry, I have a cat that's meowing here, so she must love your Rez Dog story as well, because she's trying to get into the camera. But I'm wondering too, do you do adult writing as well, or like I don't what are some other projects you're working on?
So I have the Rez Dog books, and I say books plural because I want there to be lots of them. And then I'm working on a longer book, but it's still primarily for children, but it's still like it's a longer chapter book. But those are the two things I'm working on at the moment.
Well, that's very exciting for all of us.
Thank
so
you.
many people are in love with Rez Dog.
Well, thank you.
So, yeah, and maybe there will be a cat in a Rez Dog book someday.
Potentially.
So, and have you been able to, since this came out and with COVID and everything, have you been able to do any readings in person with kids?
No, because the ones that were available, I was in the wrong state because I was in Arizona before, and so we moved here right before COVID happened. So just never quite worked out before COVID, unfortunately. But I would like to.
Yeah, I can see you at libraries. I see many libraries in your future. I also see a stuffed animal.
I do too. I would like a stuffed animal and like potentially like an activity book.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing Rez Dog with us tonight.
Thank you.
It's been really fun, and I'm really excited to be able to share copies of Rez Dog with some of our participants in the read-in this year.
Well, thank you.
Very exciting, and we have a copy in the Department of Education that nobody has actually seen because, well, COVID. So we'll be featuring that for years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and then next we have Thomas Peacock, who, as I give you a little tease, he's written many books, and it's coming to us from Florida. And this one is just so special. I'm really interested in hearing more about this, and what a delight to be able to hear you read it. So everyone, Thomas Peacock.
Thank you for having me. I thought what I'd do is spend a minute, tell you a little bit what I used to do and what I'm doing now. I'm an educator by training, a teacher by training, and so I've done that bit, of course. And then I was a school principal in a couple of different places in Minnesota schools, and a superintendent. And then I got out of that and I went into academia, taught at different places, and for most of that time I taught at Duluth in the education department, and I spent some years as an associate dean there as well. I had to do quite a bit of writing to get tenured, of course, and so I wrote all kinds of boring things that no one ever reads. And then finally, when I got the tenure thing out of the way, I started writing things that I loved, and so I started doing Ojibwe history and culture, and then I made a transition once I got out of the academic world entirely to fiction. So the last 5 books that I've done have been entirely fiction, and all the writing that I'm doing right now are entirely fiction. So the dancers, I get inspired at certain events, and I've written 2 stories, basically coming from Mashkawas and powwow grounds out in Sawyer, and I go to the Veterans Powwow every year, and I was inspired there. The last time that we went there, that they actually had a powwow, and this year it's been canceled as well. It was canceled last year, but the tribe has a veterans powwow, and veterans from all over Indian country come to that, and they're given welcome, and they're given gifts, a lot of gifts, and so I was sitting there in my folding chair thinking about, there's a story here, and that's kind of how I get ideas, and so I thought of this particular story, the dancers, and that's what I'm gonna read to you tonight. If you're watching on camera and you want to get a better view of it, you might go to speaker view and just be a bit bigger picture. So the dancers. Three summers ago, when I was a little kid, my mother and auntie took me to a powwow where we danced and danced. Mother and auntie were fancy shawl dancers. They danced like butterflies. Someday I hope to be a dancer as my mother and auntie. That summer, we spent a lot of time with my auntie. Then she joined the army. She left to become an Ogichidakwe, a female warrior. The day she left, my mother and I sang her a traveling song when she got on the plane. From that day on, we prayed every day because we knew she might go to war, and she did. Auntie was in the war for many months. Then one morning, my mother came to my room. She sat next to me on the bed and took my hand. She said Auntie was in a truck that drove over a bomb, which exploded. She said doctors were flying her to a hospital back in America. I worried about Auntie a lot that day and all that followed. She was in a faraway hospital a long time. There, the doctors and nurses worked hard to help her heal. Our community said prayers for her at our ceremonies. Then, after many months in hospital, she was ready to fly home. We went to the airport to meet her. When the Army nurse helped her from the plane, I saw for the first time that the bomb had taken her legs. I cried when I saw her like that in a wheelchair, but Auntie said, "No, my girl, be strong." So I pretended I was strong just for her. From that day on, Auntie came and lived with us, my mother and me. Sometimes when she was in pain or having bad dreams, I'd go to her room and sing to her. The seasons changed, spring into summer, and my auntie and I became the best of friends. She taught me to be strong. Then it was time again for a powwow. At first, Auntie didn't want to go. "I don't want others to see me like this," she said, "and I can't dance anymore." "No, Auntie, you can dance," I said. "You can dance with your heart." At first, Auntie said no, but I said, "Auntie, please." So she agreed to dance, and I helped push her from the car to the dance area. I saw how some people stared at her. Soon the announcer asked the singers to do an honor song for the veterans. When the song began, I asked Auntie if I could push her around the dance area in her wheelchair. Both my mother and I helped push Auntie that day. She danced with her heart. We had fun that weekend. I got to show Auntie how much better a dancer is. We went to other powwows that summer. At each one, my mother and I pushed Auntie around the dance area whenever an honor song was sung. Then one day the Veterans Hospital called. They said Auntie would be fitted with new legs and learn to walk again. She was gone a long time, and when she returned, she could walk, slowly at first. Each week she got better. And here you see Auntie with her new legs. The seasons changed to fall, then winter. That winter, my mother and Auntie made jingle dress dance outfits, which I wore in the healing dance. And they made me a fancy shawl outfit. I told Auntie that someday I hope to be as good a dancer as she. I said to her, "I will dance because I want to honor you that way." "My girl," Auntie said, "you taught me to dance again. You taught me to dance with my heart." And there's one mother and Auntie making jingle dresses. Soon it was summer again and time for a powwow. When Auntie and Mother entered the dance area, I could see everyone looking at them, especially Auntie. She danced so proud with her new legs. She held her head high. Most of the crowd was smiling and clapping when they saw Auntie dancing. Many were wiping away tears. Later, I asked my mother why. My mother said, "Auntie's a hero in Ogichida. She went to war to help protect us and our way of life. And because of it, she suffered the loss of her legs. She still sometimes has pain and bad dreams, but she's getting better. Now she can dance again, and dancing will help heal her even more." There's Auntie dancing with her jingle dress and with her new legs. My Auntie, she risked her life so we can always live on this land among our people, free to be whom we are, free to be strong, free to dance with our hearts. And that's the dancers, illustrated by Jackie Gill. She's from Appleton, Wisconsin. She's illustrated several of our books. Yeah, that's it. That's the dancers.
I'm muted. Yeah, thank you. I get teary every time I read this. It's just, it's so beautiful. and such a wonderful story for our young people to hear. You know, a story of courage and strength and resilience. I love it. Thank you so much. Um, I and I don't want to monopolize the questions. I always have many, but um, well, I'll just go ahead though. But please, write or join in and ask any questions that you have. So I'm always interested in the author illustrator relationship, and this is somebody that you've worked with in the past.
We met her at a book festival here in Bradenton about 5 years ago. She's a writer and illustrator of children's books, and then one day she moved back to Wisconsin to be closer to home, take care of family, and so then we had an opportunity to work with her. So how it works with books that I do is I typically will just write a story and I'll separate it out by a few spaces, and then I'll give the illustrator free rein to use their artistic ability to create whatever, and that's usually how I've done it. And I think I've done about 3 or 4 children's books now, and that's kind of the way that I've done those. Now with the wonderful, I just have to say something about Heather's book about Rez Dog, because my wife and I of course own Blackberries and Blueberries Publishing, and that was one of the first 2 stories that we published. It's this beautiful story. One thing we found out when we were done with it was that there are Rez Dog organizations all over Indian country, and that find homes for little Rez Dogs, cups and shirts and you name it. So yeah, it's so funny anyway. Yeah.
So the so you found this illustrator, um, but she's not of indigenous heritage, is or yes, I don't know.
No, no, no,
Just
she's not. And we didn't at the time we were having trouble finding any native illustrators, and we're already keeping the one Jordan Rogers busy, who's from Duluth, the illustrator for Rez Dog and for the Grasshopper Girl, our first 2 books. She was too busy doing those illustrations. It takes a month or 2 for those to get done, and in the meantime, I had a deadline for the dancers, and so I went with Jackie, and she worked out just fine. She had to do quite a bit of research on Ojibwe people, though, because we kept sending it. She used her creativity, but at first she had jingle dress dancers that only had a few jingles on them, so we had to show her pictures of jingle dresses.
yeah, there's always that piece of cultural authenticity, and can somebody from outside my culture tell my story and and paint me the way and and I love that when somebody can do that and do it so well. I love that children who read this will see themselves in it, and that Heather will see herself in here also.
Yeah.
So it's just so beautiful, and also this, I think this is such an important book for children right now. With we have a big focus on social emotional learning these days, and that's really important. And this is such a great opportunity for students to, read something and have an empathetic response to it. And so I'm so thrilled with this. I think Rez Dog does that too, right? To, take in,
Absolutely.
yeah. Just love this. Chantel, Caitlin, do you have questions?
Mary, there's a question in the chat for Tom. It's from Henry. He asks, did you face any challenges in making the book?
Yeah, this particular book, no, I do children's books. I write. It maybe takes me a half an hour to do that. So the story, when I'm doing fiction, the characters appear in my head and tell me the story, and they tell it to me, and I see images, and then they tell me when it's done. I had an idea of a girl who had an auntie who went to war, and I didn't know what was going to happen after that, and so the characters kind of tell me. So the little girl appeared in my head. She showed me, I call it seeing things without being mentally ill. That's kind of what it is. It's the imagination tells the story. So. Yeah, sounds crazy. It probably is.
I wanted to ask for both of you, actually. There's so much. One thing I love about hearing children's book is even if it's a difficult topic, there's some aspect of joy in there, or something that is just enjoyable about hearing them. And I'm wondering, what as writers do you enjoy most about writing these stories or putting them down? Because it strikes me that this is something that you both really enjoy doing, and it's important work.
Yeah, who's going to start, Heather?
Sometimes for me, it's a matter of thinking through whether I'm going through or things that I've gone through, to kind of like put words to paper or computer, things that I've thought about or thinking about, whether it's a hard situation, like the dog that's been abandoned and how they're searching for a home, and how happy they would feel if they found a home, or a different situation, like that. And so it's like, how would I feel? How would this other person feel, putting yourself in those shoes, and at the same time creating some sort of fun background and fun situations out of that as well. So whether it's the dog who eats pickles or things like that.
I think because in my case, because my imagination introduces the characters and tells the story, and I just become the person typing away at it. I feel all the emotions, happiness, sadness. I feel all of that when I'm writing. So my writing, makes me laugh, and makes me cry, and I even sometimes after reading things again, it does that. It's just the nature of who I am, I think. So.
Yeah, and I just love how, highlighting, families of veterans. We're doing that in the course I teach. We have, supporting military families is a little strain of what we do. And this is just, I love that the main character is a woman, and a woman warrior. I think this is one of the first books I've seen, you know, with a woman character. Of course, I haven't read every book, but that it's, I love that. I think it sends such a powerful message you know, to everyone who reads it. Um, and I mean, it's just sad and beautiful. And um, yeah, um, I, you write a book in half an hour. Is that what you said?
Just half an hour. Yeah, kind of what
Wow.
they just sort of come to me, and I just type them out, and the rest of the week is actually just spent editing it, you know, making real sentences and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Do you have something in the works right now?
I have a couple of books. One is going to be published. Another one by Minnesota Historical Society Press, called "The Naming of a Key." And what I did was take the Ojibwe, our parallel relationship with wolves, and make it a children's story, and it's part of the creation story. And then I have a book um, which is going to be released. I think the end of September. We're looking at, um, and that one I had received a COVID small business grant from my reservation from Fond du Lac, and so I chose to do a book called The Fire, and it's actually based on an interview I did with an elder, Elizabeth Gurnall, back in 1973. She lived through the Great Fire of 1918, that burned down most of the city, all of the city of Cloquet and Brookston and Floodwood area, and burned through the reservation. So she was 6 years old at the time, and it was her telling of her fire story. And I put it to fiction, the story. And so the story is written, the illustrations need to get done. But what we're going to do is we're going to distribute it like free of charge to all the second graders on the reservation. So Cloquet, Carlton, Albrook, Ojibwe School, they'll all be receiving, the second graders will get a free copy of it. And so, yeah. So, and then I have another adult novel coming out in a month or so. So I do adult novels now. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Not that kind of adult. Just, you know, geared toward adult readers. Basically.
I never know how to say that. Um,
I know.
I also I forgot about the Wolf's Trail um,
Yeah.
that came out recently, and
Now
so
the Wolf's Trail, the characters, of course, you had to imagine being a wolf,
uh-huh.
and because all of the characters are wolves, so I had to put myself in being in the position of the principal character, Jishe, and so that was different. That, that one is really done exceptionally well. The in terms of its distribution and sales, and it garnered me some big kind of award from the Minnesota Library Association, fiction writer of the year or some goofy thing, and a nice little fat check. So that was great. But yeah, I loved writing that book, and
Well
I
deserved.
want people to know about the relationship with wolves.
And the illustration on the cover is so beautiful.
Yeah, we're gonna. I bought the original painting, the cover, from the artist who lives in Madison, and I'm donating. I told the director of ACO, the American Indian organization in Duluth, that I'm donating that painting and a signed copy of the book when we're able to all meet in 3D again, when this pandemic's over with, and when they have one of their art fundraisers. Because, yeah, So maybe when it comes out, you can buy yourself a raffle ticket, and who knows, might
So
go home with the painting if you love the color.
I don't know if people can see my screen, but it's so beautiful. Yeah, I'll be there.
Right.
So, um, well, do we have any other questions? I have, like, one of our questions was from one of my students. We are, I teach the multicultural education class in the teacher education program. And so we're looking at, well, right now we're focused on how you integrate Wisconsin American Indian history and culture into all the subject areas, and we do that so much through books and using literature in all subject areas, and I'm really excited for my students to have the opportunity to see this recording and to this week we'll be getting into looking at all the wonderful books that are available, and so many more since I started at UWS in 2011. It's amazing. Like Heather was saying, there were so few and far between, and more and more, and what I love about this opportunity when students who are going to be teachers hear your stories and are exposed to your stories, they will be using these in the classroom, and making sure that all students see the many cultures that make up our multicultural society represented in their classrooms and regularly. So I really appreciate you giving future teachers this kind of insight into great literature and just great stories. So thank you so much for this great work that you do. And are, I don't know if there are any other questions. I can't see I'm going back to the chat. No.
It's okay, Mary. There's no other questions in the chat.
Thank you. Well, again, I'd like to say thank you. And we do have some parting gifts. Heather and Thomas, we have a gift certificate for both of you from the Indigenous First Arts and Gifts at the American Indian Community Housing Organization. And so Caitlin will be getting your addresses so we can send this to you. Just really thankful that you could be here. And we'll be looking for all the next books that are coming out. The Adventures of Rez Dog, and more from you, Thomas. Really excited about that. We'll be waiting. And and I appreciate you joining us in over Zoom. I know we're all tired of Zoom, but this was a delightful Zoom evening. And I'm just so thrilled that we were able to have our read-in again this year, and thanks to your participation. So what else do I want to say, Caitlin? Keep reading, everybody. And log in, everybody else, and read. And we'll let you go for tonight. Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Heather and Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.